All right, welcome back. This is the fifth section of Unit 1 lecture, talking about Earth's systems. Earth's a big place. So as a geologist, if someone asks, what do you study? And I said, Earth, well, what part? What aspect? How much? How little? So again, the Earth's a big place. So instead of just studying the whole Earth, we could break it down into what we call systems. So, what and how do we do that? Again, we instead of just looking at the whole Earth, we break it down into big chunks called system. And a system is defined as any portion of the universe or Earth that can be isolated for the purposes of observing and measuring change. So I could look at the whole Earth. I could look at just North America. I could look at just Arizona. I could just look at the surface of Arizona. I could just look what's below the surface of Arizona. I could just look at Maricopa County. I could just look at Phoenix. I could just look at my little desk. The system is defined however I want it to be. So in this example, if I'm studying this area, instead of, this is a pretty diverse area. There's rivers and ponds or oceans, there's plant life, there's aquatic life, there's cliffs, there's hills, there's trees. So there's a lot going on. So we can break it down into systems. I just want to study the hilltop. I just want to study the river system. I want to study the kind of interaction between the land and the ocean. I just want to study the bottom of the ocean, the bottom of this lake or pond. I want to study the dirt underneath this water and how it got there and what's going on there. So a system is kind of defined any way you want it. However, in geology, we can break the Earth down into kind of bigger chunks that we can later kind of keep whittling down, and we call these the four spheres. There's the geosphere. So I could study the solid Earth as a whole, ignoring kind of everything else. I could study the biosphere. That's all the living and recently dead organisms on Earth, which play a part in geology. Some rocks are made from the dead and decayed remains of animals and plants. The atmosphere, the gas that surrounds the Earth. Volcanoes put out a lot of gas when they erupt, so geology does have a part in the atmosphere. So I guess study just the atmosphere. Or the hydrosphere. Water plays a big part in geology. When people think geology, they think rocks. Yeah, well, that's part of it, but water plays a big part. In fact, the last third of our class this semester, we'll pretty much be talking all about water, fresh water, salt water, rivers, streams, oceans, groundwater, ice, all kinds of things. So water does play a big part. And it's the interaction of all of these spheres that makes geology. So again, it's just not study rocks. It's how the atmosphere and biosphere and hydrosphere kind of plays a part in the geosphere. We have to consider all of these things. But again, the Earth's a big place, so we just kind of focus on chunks. Now, within these spheres are cycles, all right, or within these systems are cycles. There's the hydrologic cycle, otherwise known as the water cycle, describes the movement of water. There's the rock cycle. It's the process that form, modify, transport, and or break down rock. And then there's the tectonic cycle. It's the processes that drive the movement and interactions in the lithosphere. Lithosphere is just a fancy word for kind of the crust, the uppermost portions of the Earth, the outermost portions of the Earth. Lithos, Greek for stone or rock. So the rock sphere. So that's the crusty stuff at and just below the surface. So it's the interaction of these cycles within these spheres that shapes Earth. So geology really is a capstone science. Coming into this introductory 101 class, there's no prerequisites. You have to have little to no knowledge of anything else. But to really appreciate and understand Earth at a high level, there is an understanding of physics and chemistry and biology. A little bit goes into really understanding geology. You really have to know a lot of those things to really get and figure out how the Earth works. It's a very complex place. Now again, I'm not assuming you know physics, chemistry, biology. Anything along the semester that we might have to learn in those realms, we will discuss just a little bits here and there. All right, but all of these things play a part in shaping the Earth. All of these cycles that work within these spheres, within the systems as we defined it, all interact with one another. And it's actually going to be these cycles that dictate this semester. So we will start off talking about the tectonic cycle. So the first kind of third of the class will be the tectonic cycle, talking about magma, liquid hot rock, igneous rocks. So we're talking about volcanics now, volcanoes, whether they're at the surface, below the ocean, which causes seafloor spreading, the movement of plates, subduction, the movement of plates. So the interaction of plates driving these volcanoes, driving earthquakes, would create these things, what creates change on the surface of the earth. So we'll take time to talk about the tectonic cycle for about the first third of the class. The second third of the semester, we'll talk about the rock cycle and all the different types of rocks, igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, metamorphic rocks, and all of those processes therein, which is connected to the tectonic cycle, and how all of that is later connected to the hydrologic cycle, and all of that also being influenced from the outside by solar energy, by the sun. So the sun plays a big part in driving geology as well, which helps to drive the water cycle, which helps to drive the rock cycle as well. And then also internal energy from the earth, left over from the remnants of formation and some other things, helping to drive the tectonic cycle, rock cycle, interaction with the hydrologic cycle. So it's all connected. All connected. Short, somewhat, and sweet. So we'll pause there. And when we come back, I think we'll look at our last section, section 6, on what makes Earth so unique. I'll see you back here in just a minute.